networks with the stuff from your more conservative, let's say, work professional life, and that these things work and they brought together in a really nice way that don't add a bunch of complexity, but actually simplify your life. And that came, yeah, to program it took some programming chops, but understanding people's lives came as a result of some really serious field work way before this started, to sort of actually look, what do you do? Look at people's calendars. They're studying all kinds of stuff like that. And it's a fascinating thing that I think this product is the one of scale that we've probably done the best job at of trying to bring these elements together in a really new methodology. And I think it's paid off really well.
Yeah, I was wondering, in your book, Sketching User Experiences, you mention a philosophy, N+1,
yes,
which is the fact that companies can't survive if they're constantly adding, the 5.0, 7.0, what have you, 21.0 version of their product. Eventually, there's so many features that are being tweaked and added and hidden and made prominent that it just becomes so convoluted that it's not even worth attempting to understand. So, do you think the key to keeping a company alive is to really embody this philosophy of teamwork through the design and development and business?
So the observation that I was making in the book was that, yes, that virtually all software companies survive by bringing out new releases of previous products, and in a sense that's good. I mean, Microsoft, I'm not complaining that Windows is still in business. The point is that that can, at a certain point, that becomes more and more expensive to add because of the legacy code, and you get more and more tied down, your hands tied by the legacy decisions made 5-10 years ago before in a much different environment. And so you can have that kind of business, but it won't sustain growth forever. And you need to bring out new products. And what companies are not very good at is generating new products in-house through any type of systematic process. And hence the software industry has developed and grown primarily by mergers and acquisitions. Taking some other company that has a product and then growing that. And that's how you get new products, buying a startup, building a product. And that's sort of the lesser of two evils. The larger evil is that you try and make it yourself and you fail and you go out and you lose money. But the ideal way is, I think, to build new products that are appropriate, that you control and are appropriate for your business. Companies have tried that over and over and they generally fail. And I believe that's because they don't have the right design methodology and they don't have the right teams. And much of what people like me at Microsoft, but not just me, are working on is to develop those processes where we can, in fact, reliably, or consistently, not reliably, because you're going to get some wrong, bring new products to market. I would say that what you're seeing in this phone and this whole ecosystem is an approach to demonstrate and really put to the test some of those processes. And I think hopefully it's the beginning of a whole new way of working and a whole new stream of really great products coming out of the company.
Yeah.
One thing too is, kind of looking at, we keep coming out with, new versions of previous products. What's your thought on do you think we're going to kind of get to a point where, we keep doing the same thing over and over and over again, that eventually whatever the original intent was of something, where it's going to become so lost that where essentially whatever is out there is just going to lose any value that it may have had?
Well, it could be. I mean, there's some cases where you end a product line and or you just go back to basics, say I'm going to start from scratch and redo it. It's a very expensive thing to do because you're trying to catch up on what might have been 20 years of work. But it tends to, some products have been around for really a long time, and it's remarkable and remarkably successful. And it's just maybe the size of the audience, or and they're still worth keeping because they have value, but they're not enough to support the investment. See, the problem with the system in which we live in the economic system, is that companies kind of have to keep growing to maintain investor interest and so on, and this is a real challenge, because you can't grow forever, but you kind of, the model's based on that, and so that product that's been around for years and years may still be a solid business that's generating solid revenue, but it's not necessarily going to, the market's maybe not growing as large, or it may be saturated as other competitors. It's a mature product. You want to keep backfilling with new types of products that will grow into that when that one gradually gets retired. Ideally, like any other investment portfolio, you want a balance of products, because those things that have had a long life, that's generally revenue you can count on. In a sense, it's a regular income that keeps you going, and that's often what funds the new product. These are aspects of, and this is one aspect, one model of business. There's other business models, and in some sense, I think as we go forward, you're going to see as much innovation in terms of new business models from software companies as we move into services types of things, as we have in the technology or the design. And I think that's another part of why we have this triad, is that I'm kind of thinking, is there something that is as cool in terms of rethinking how you even make a living and keep people going, and that's as cool as Surface is, as a technology, but as a business model? I think that there has to be such things, and I think any company that is in there for a long time as well as a good time needs to think about those things.
Yeah. All right, so just one question is, do you think, to avoid the divergence, convergence dichotomy in developing products, whereas we have one end where we're constantly developing new products that take on more and more tasks in our lives, that are constantly, we have devices that are cameras and our phones and our messaging devices, and you can download applications that are completely customized. And then you have other technologies that are focused on one thing. Where do you think our focus should be? I mean, I guess as a collective economy, or where our focus should be in terms of, should we be focusing more on getting one thing right, or should we be going down the path of?
My tendency has been to, is a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
What you don't want is to put so much into the package it gets. I own a Swiss Army knife with 80 different tools on it. Like, the only thing it's good for is a boat anchor. But I have it as an example about what happens when you add too much functionality into a gadget. On the other hand, if you just have just the knife on the Swiss Army knife, it's still useful. But actually, the best compromise for me is the one that's small but with maybe 4 things on it. It's a question of balance. And there's a place often along that continuum from absolute minimal one function versus many function. And what I believe is that there's going to be a convergence in the underlying infrastructure, the data, and so on and so forth, but divergence in the appliances where the rubber hits the road, where I physically fit things. And it's partially just because of style. It's the same way as how many pairs of shoes do you have? And why do you have them? And would you, if you could have one pair of shoes that you could just adapt to everything, would you prefer that? And the answer is no, because it's not just about function. How many wristwatches do you have? Well, I have one for mountaineering, I have one for scuba diving, and I have one for dressing up, and so on. And so you could say, well, that's consumerism at its worst. Might be, but I'll tell you, if you try to add any functionality to my avalanche beacon, I'll take my ski pole at you, And so it really depends. And yet, I have a camera on my phone, but I still have a really good SLR. Because it's not just a camera. There's a whole range of cameras for different purposes. Everything's best for something, worst for something else. And when we make these decisions, the challenge is to know what is best or worst for what, for whom, when, why, and at what price. And then we can start to sort of populate. I see the technologies as a mosaic, and where each piece is one of the tiles that make up this larger image of what is the ecosystem that we live in terms of technologies, and figure out what's the right mosaic that we're trying to build, and what are the tiles that we put in, and we're finding that out. And I think, but the main thing is, whatever individual ones we put out there, they have to work well with the other ones. They're not islands unto themselves, and they have to interact. And when I have 3 together, I get 5 times as much convenience and 1/5 the complexity, as opposed to 5 times or 25 times the complexity. And those are the games, but the common attraction that I think are possible for the first time. That more things actually means less complexity if they're designed right.
All right, thank you so much, Bill, for joining
pleasure.
us. Really appreciate
Pleasure
it.
speaking
My
with
pleasure.
you.
And if you want to follow Bill Buxton and what he's up to, you can follow him on billbuxton.com. And if you want to follow what the Microsoft insiders are up to, not just at MIX, but everywhere else we're at this year, just follow the hashtag on Twitter, Microsoft SI. Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
Excellent. My pleasure.
Thanks.